Welcome to On the Corner of Main Street, presented by Plaza Hotel and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Here is Plaza CEO Jonathan Jossel, Russell Aaron, Gary Vickery, and I'm your host, Lisa Melmed. Hi, welcome to On the Corner of Main Street. We've recorded some amazing shows for you, but want to touch on this pandemic before releasing the next few episodes. We are recording this episode remotely from our homes. And today, we're going to talk about how this pandemic has affected the Plaza and how it reminds us of previous economic experiences. We know we will get through this together, stronger than ever, and we can't wait to welcome you back to the corner of Main Street. So how's everyone doing? It's good to see you guys finally after all this time.
It's nice to see you guys. I'm doing good. How are you doing, Lisa?
Good, thank you.
Jonathan, how are you doing?
I am doing good, Russ. Thank you for asking. I'm okay. I still make it down to the hotel most days, check on things, see a few familiar faces. But it's nice to do our first virtual podcast. So hopefully we have no technical difficulties. If they can do an NFL draft over Zoom, we can do a podcast, I'm sure.
I was wondering
how to have some normalcy.
I was wondering how my Megabucks machine is doing. I miss walking by it every day and seeing like how it goes up. How is the casino?
Well, it isn't going up, I can tell you that.
Oh man.
But the casino's doing good. We're doing good. We've done some nice projects, some upgrades, and it's difficult, but everyone's hanging in there as best they can and looking forward to getting back open as soon as we can.
So let's rewind and take it back to March 18th or March 17th when the governor ordered hotels and casinos have to close by midnight the next night. Jonathan, what was going through your mind when that announcement took place?
So it wasn't exactly as you just described. We had gotten a call from someone close to the governor at about 11 a.m. that day saying the governor was going to make a order that night to close the casino by midnight, but the hotel the following day. And while that was, it seemed scary at the time, it also seemed inevitable. I mean, the Wynn and MGM had already declared that they were going to be shutting down on that Tuesday. And seeing what was happening in the rest of the world and the rest of the country, it just seemed somewhat inevitable that it was coming, frankly. I think some of us were expecting it sooner from the governor, given what was happening in other places. So it wasn't a total shock. What was shocking to me was, and not necessarily in a negative way, was the place was still busy. I mean, that weekend, we were sold out. Con Expo had just finished. The convention was one of the biggest of the year. It had gone ahead without any issues. Oscar Steakhouse had the best 10-day run it had ever had, and here we were hearing about all this tragedy in the rest of the world, and Oscars was packed every night. It was almost hard to put the two things together.
You and I actually shared videos on Twitter of people still being on Fremont Street, like it was still busy and happening.
Yeah, that was the Saturday night before.
Yeah.
But then on the Monday, we did see a dramatic drop off. Oscars was very quiet Monday night, and we started to say, well, this might be what's coming as the new normal. And so when the governor made that mandate to shut down, it sort of made our decisions easier as to what we were going to do. But it was still difficult to convey that to our team. You know, we have team members that have worked in that building every day for 25, 30 years. And for them to hear like, oh, you're going home and there's no notice, it's 6 hours. You have 6 hours to get out of here, guys, to dealers, to managers. It was difficult. It was difficult and not something that I enjoyed. But you touched on this in the beginning, which was we've had some difficult situations before at the Plaza. And as a group, we always bounce back strong. And this is more difficult, but I have no doubt that we'll be able to bounce back strong.
I remember asking you and you said, yeah, you've been through it, but now we have a lot more irons in the fire is I think how you put it. We have a lot more things going on that we're responsible for, and so I remember you saying that.
Well, February was the best month the Plaza ever had. It was the best February we ever had. And for us to be 2 weeks later told you have to shut and everything cease was really disappointing when you're on such a good momentum. We had great business book. The city was busy. Things were looking very good for the rest of March, for April. So, I mean, it definitely halted us in our tracks. We definitely had more things we had to pull back on. Unfortunately, more team members that, had to go home. It was just it is a more difficult situation than it was 5-6 years ago, even 10 years ago during the recession, because the Plaza has evolved so much. There's so much more going on, and we had so much more business scheduled. I mean, we had the Demolition Derby at the end of March scheduled. We had Super Bingo at the beginning of April scheduled. So all these things in March people were still.
Yeah,
March Madness
Mania, that's a big one.
That's the best 4 days of the year. So I mean, we all these things that were planned were just suddenly gone, and those are events that we never had to deal with previously. Well, March Madness was always there, but the Demolition Derby and the big Super Bingos were all things we had built and taken our team had contributed to. So it was hard to see all of that go down, but obviously the world safety comes first.
What were some of the meetings that you had to schedule that day and the following days to figure out, okay, what are we going to do here?
So I don't know who was there. We all were in my office where the governor was speaking. We were not social distancing yet. There was too many of us in our office, and we were watching the governor make his announcement of the shutdown that was coming, and everyone was like, almost like, it almost felt like, if you've ever seen the videos of them getting the updates during wartime, and everyone's listening to the old radios, and they're sitting around hearing the president make a speech or whatever, an update, and it just felt like that, a little surreal. And then the key became really the casino operations, because those ones we had 6 hours to shut down. So we got with our table games team, our slot team, and our cage team, and said, okay, this is the order, and turning off the machines is a pretty straightforward process. You just need people to do that. Shutting down table games was a little bit more elaborate, because you still had people playing, and then we had to drop the tables, secure the tables, and then drop the slot machines, and then close the cage. I mean, it's not that elaborate or difficult. It just takes time and is time consuming. But we pulled together.
You guys don't even have a plan for that either, though. It's not like we have disaster plans and we have things put in place, like if this were to happen, earthquakes and stuff, but we never had any of that. So you're kind of asking the team, what are you prepared for, or how do you know how to do this? It was a short time, right?
Yeah, but it's a pretty straightforward instruction: shut down. You know what I mean? And you got 6 hours. So drop the machines, turn them off. A useful piece of information for people is slot machines are not meant to be turned off, period. They should just be locked out, because if you turn them off entirely, turning them back on can be very risky for the machines, and you could lose the boards or power to them. And then obviously we had to just take all the cash out the cage. You didn't want to be sitting around, because the hotel was still open physically, but the casino was closed. So we didn't want to have all the money in the cage and less security and not as much foot traffic around. And, if people are nervous, and especially early on in pandemics, of people might do crazy things. So we had to take all the cash out the cage and then start securing the hotel, which, I mean, Gary, you can probably speak to better, the process of getting people out and telling them you got 24 hours, 48 hours to get out.
Yeah, so I mean, we touched base. We tried to touch base with every guest that was in the hotel. I think we probably had maybe about 400 rooms that were still actually occupied by the time that the order came down, and most of them still had many days left on their reservations. So we reached out to a majority of them. They were already kind of working on their alternate plans, how they were going to get home. It was a bit of a challenge. Luckily, we were able to get everybody out of the hotel by the next morning at 11 o'clock. Everybody was super understanding. There weren't many challenges with it.
Well, it was weird, because the governor's mandate, actually, in hindsight, did not say hotels had to be closed down. Hotels were, I think, considered essential businesses, and some smaller hotels did stay open during this time. I don't think for us it would have made sense to keep a hotel open and subject people to working in these conditions, but it was confusing at the time, because the hotels, some places would say, well, hotels don't have to be closed, maybe it's just the casino. I think everyone did the right thing in closing down.
They had no food venues as well. So all of our food venues
Yeah.
were shut down. I mean, they would have just been sitting in a hotel room until they had to leave.
There was this whole movement already for social distancing prior to closing down. And in my perspective, especially with the lack of information people had about what was actually going on, bringing people in here and having dealers separate, table games separated, having slot machines separated, it just didn't seem right that we were trying to do that when the rest of the world was already talking about all these extreme measures that were taking place. And to have this atmosphere already of social distancing in practice, I think it was easier the governor shut it down in hindsight at that time.
And on March 18th, not everybody had the protective masks, the gloves, the different things. That wasn't what they were planning on when they were coming to Las Vegas to begin with. So a lot of people didn't have the supplies to be around people.
I mean, then they were still saying that masks weren't going to protect you from the virus.
Right. I mean, back then there was a lack of data. There's still a lack of good data and information. So who knows? I think they had to take that measure at the time.
So now that the property is closed, are there any daily activities that happen? Like I heard security is going through every room and flushing toilets to make sure the pipes are still moving, or is there anything else that has to be done to maintain the building?
So we kept all of our team on for 2 weeks afterwards to give people a little bit of landing time. And then we chose to keep engineering, security, surveillance, essential positions to secure the property. You laugh about it, but there's no locks on our doors. So how do you close a casino? How do you lock a casino? We have chains and planks of wood securing our doors.
Yeah.
That's our measure for locking it up. So we still have security. We still have engineering there, and then we chose the opportunity to do some work in the building to deep clean everything. I mean, the Plaza is never going to look cleaner than it looked before closing. It's going to be
looks gorgeous right now,
brand spanking new. We took the opportunity to do some maintenance on some hotel rooms, clean up some equipment in the rooms, some furniture. We took the opportunity to remodel our casino bathrooms. That was actually a good opportunity because we were going to do that project in April anyway, and closing those casino bathrooms presented a lot of operational issues. Well, where are people going to go? And we would have had to make them walk to the front desk or upstairs to the third floor. So having the time to do those casino bathrooms now and do them in the right way, they are beautiful bathrooms, some of the nicest bathrooms you're going to see. So we did that project. And there's a few other little things we're doing remodel-wise to keep people busy, keep people working and employed. Those are the main functions. And then we still have some of our executive team that goes in to plan for reopening. We have a weekly meeting about reopening now, both a weekly for marketing, as you know, Lisa, and then a weekly for operations, as you know, Gary. So we're starting to plan. The problem with this, of course, is nobody really knows when we're going to be allowed to open. We have a bit more insight today. It's looking a little bit more like late May, but the governor originally said April 17th, then he said May 1st, and right now he's not saying any date. So there's a chance, of course, he says no to end of May, and now we're looking into June. So we are trying to be fluid as we go through this and come up with the most safe and secure measures for reopening when that eventually happens.
Let's take it back to 2011 when you experienced something similar, kind of.
Not at all.
Yeah,
not at all.
That was the last time it closed, right? That was the last time we had any type of closures at the property.
especially like the casino portion of it too.
Well, okay, so you're right, Lisa. We experienced something similar in the sense of we closed down the Plaza for 10 months, which was a really great opportunity for me and for the property to relaunch the Plaza, which is what we did over that 10 months. We shut down because we were doing a remodel and came back with an entirely new project. Now, we could have done it while open, but we all took the belief that closing down and coming back as a new Plaza, which is what we did, was the right thing to do. Similar to what the Hard Rock's done right now as we speak. They probably could have done it in phases, but it made more sense to come back as a brand new place, and that's what we did in 2010. I think that the Plaza remodel was a catalyst for a lot of people downtown to say, wow, we can we can step it up here and make our facilities much nicer. And that's what ultimately happened.
Was the Fontainebleau auction, was that the genesis of the remodel, or was the remodel already in place and then it just so happened that the Fontainebleau was going into an auction of all of its furnishings?
Well, let me take you a little bit back, Gary, on that. I think if I can tie that back to what's happening now, was 2008 was a terrible time to be in Las Vegas. There was bankruptcies, there was a lot of economic hardship, and trying to operate the hotels in that time was really, really difficult. And at the Plaza, the Las Vegas Club, the Westin, they were not doing well. The properties were not doing well, and the Fontainebleau, as it was known then, today it's called the Drew, but the Fontainebleau was under construction to become this, 5-star, 5-diamond resort, and they went bankrupt, and it got sold out of bankruptcy. Now, the time in Las Vegas back then was, I don't want to say harder than it is now, but I think it was harder because everybody was still open and operating in a very difficult climate. At least now we're closed. The fear, of course, is when we reopen, what does Las Vegas look like? But back then we were open and navigating a very difficult economic time while trying to figure it out. So when the Fontainebleau was sold and the new owners decided that they wanted to sell the furniture, our designer and our architect had a contact there, and they called us up and said, hey, they're going to sell everything. It wasn't an official auction yet. They said they're going to sell everything. Do you want to go and take a look at it? And when we went in there, everything was there and available in the basement: tile, carpet, wallpaper, light sconces, everything. And it was almost too good of an opportunity to pass up. So when we bought it, and then funnily enough, the Downtown Grand bought some of the remaining stuff that we didn't buy, as did one of the properties in Prim. So if you go into the Downtown Grand, they got the same hallway carpet. If you go to the one in Prim, they got the same hallway carpet, because the Fontainebleau was going to be 5,000 rooms. Yeah. But it was very, very ambitious of our owner, Poyu, and all of us in Las Vegas to say, let's spend $35 million in 2010 in the midst of this recession, because that recession lasted a long time. And to close down and to do this remodel back then was an ambitious undertaking, given that there was no certainty that when we reopened, the market was going to come back to what it had been in 2005, 2006. Do
you have any specifics on what was actually bought in the auction? Was it more of what you said, the sconces, the hallway carpet, or
so we bought I don't have a full inventory, but we bought enough for about 1,200 rooms because we wanted to have some excess. We still have it today, as you know. We just did a little cleanup refresh on the 7th floor using the same carpet. The main items was the hallway carpet, the casino carpet, the bed frames, the bedside tables, the armoire, the chairs, the desk, if I said wallpaper, light sconces. The only things we actually had to buy for the rooms was the artwork, the TVs, and the mattress. So everything else, and then everything in the bathroom was out of there. The faucets, the tile. The only thing we had to buy was the TV, artwork, and mattress.
Isn't our lobby the tile there part of that as well?
It is. Yep. That's Fontainebleau tile.
That was the first thing I remember you saying, was that our lobby was part of the Fontainebleau.
Is that in Coffee with Me?
Yeah, it was my first coffee with the CEO inside of the back of Brightside.
How did you enjoy that?
I learned a lot, and I didn't know that, a lot of the things put in place were there. And then you went through a grand remodeling. I thought when I started working there that a lot of the things were still the same. And I didn't know that multiple things have changed, but there's vintage in downtown. And, as you start pointing those out to me, it really started to show like how you made things, but still that 70s Palm Springs kind of feel.
Yeah, exactly. And the tile in the lobby was done, but then the casino carpet we designed ourselves, and the front desk we designed ourselves. We actually put in new escalators. The escalators that go up to Oscars and Bingo, those were brand new escalators that we put in at the time. But that remodel was done in a very difficult time. I would say probably the toughest time I've experienced in Las Vegas. So you truly learn that expression of tough times don't last, tough people do, and that was tough. But to reopen in 2011 with a brand new plaza, brand new property, just really gave us a sense of that was worth it. Unfortunately, as the story goes, 2011 wasn't quite the bounce back we had expected, and the plaza didn't quite hit all firing on all cylinders until a couple of years later. But it gave us a great base for building on and improving the property.
Is there anything you can take from opening the plaza then to how we can open the plaza once we're allowed to now?
Good question.
I don't think so, Lisa, because I think reopening the plaza, we were the only ones doing it. You know, we were the only ones who'd been shut down for a remodel, and we had a brand new place to say, come back to. I think reopening the plaza today is going to be a lot more challenging. Everybody's reopening, so everybody's going to have the same goal of let's get back to work, let's get people back to having fun, and we're going to be up against all of that. The biggest issue is going to be, what does the new normal look like, at least for the next foreseeable future, right? What does social distancing look like? For us, inside of the casino, what exactly is going to be different, right? So now we're talking about doing Super Bingo, and we used to have 1,000 people in a room. We're now talking about doing half that head count, but with 6 feet in between everybody, giving out masks to everybody, gloves to everybody, wiping down in between sessions. There's a whole nother level of new operating procedures that we did not have to consider in 2011 that we now have to factor in. And so that is something that we're going to have to do.
Let's take a quick break, and when we return, we'll talk about more of these details of what it'll look like to open the plaza back up now and in 2012. We'll be right back on the corner of Main Street.
I'm Steve Heitner, the guy who said those famous words, "That's gold." So that's the name of my podcast. That's Gold with Steve Heitner. We try to expand your horizons.
It's intense, but only for like 7 seconds at a time.
I've had relationships that ran about that. We keep up on breaking sports news.
Well, wait a minute. Drunks and Fornicators, I think they met in the first round of their playoffs for the right to go to hell. I think that was the way that worked, yeah.
That was the play-in game.
We are patrons of the arts. And then I also love the idea of the fictional autobiography.
Well, I didn't want to be sued, as you've learned. It's not fun.
And we take you new places.
Stop first at the RV Museum in Elkhart, Indiana.
I hear they have an amazing roadkill wing in there. That's amazing.
You got to say they actually have the first Winnebago that ever knocked a deer into the side pocket.
We're here for you twice a week. That's Gold with me, Steve Heitner.
We're back on the corner of Main Street. We're talking about what it was like shutting down the plaza in 2011 for a remodel and what it took to open back up. So, Jonathan, when you opened back up then, was it fully staffed? Were room rates high? What was the plan opening then?
So funnily enough, when we reopened, it was in August, and there was a line to get in the door. I'll never forget it. It was 110 degrees outside, and there was a line to get in, and we did launch with a Super Bingo. Now, you know, not to be critical of our team, but we did do things wrong in the sense that the building was not quite ready to be reopened back then. Gary, you weren't with us yet, were you?
I weren't, but I heard some horror stories about some plumbing issues and different things like that.
Yeah, we just weren't ready to reopen, but the management at the time made. In what way? In that the rooms weren't quite buttoned up yet. We hadn't addressed all of the details and the finer touch points that the customer was going to experience. Not all the slot machines were out yet in the right place, and so we rushed it. We did rush it, and we had a Super Bingo, which was the catalyst for that opening. So that's why it was forced on us. But the rooms weren't fully set. We had crews running around at the last minute trying to do touch up in the rooms, and I think we burnt a lot of bridges in that moment, unfortunately. So we did learn from that. Of course, this is different again, but I think the idea with the remodels, if you're shut down for 9 months, what's the difference of an extra week or two if you do it right? And unfortunately, back then we didn't. The steakhouse didn't end up opening until December. So again, we opened up in August, and we didn't end up opening the steakhouse till December. So there was a few could have done better operationally, detail-wise, specifically. And when you bring on a whole new team, Lisa, we didn't have a higher room rate that I remember because downtown at the time was still very much a function of the Strip. Today, downtown has found its niche and it's growing very nicely in the sense that people are coming down there without necessarily saying, well, I can stay at the Strip for the same price or a little bit more. I think people want to be downtown now, so we're able to grow our rates more easily. Back in 2011, downtown was still very much a function of the Strip. We hadn't yet remodeled the convention floor, so the convention space was very much underutilized. And we hadn't redone the pool deck, and so that was underutilized. So we did this remodel, but it really wasn't comprehensive, and we really weren't buttoned up by the time we reopened. And that was a big mistake, which I think ultimately showed a couple of months and years later that there was still more work needed to be done at the Plaza, which didn't get done until 2015. So that was a big learning curve for us.
Were there any ideas that were proposed during the remodel that never happened?
Gary, there were some that we did that were bad, and there were some that we wanted to do and either didn't have the finance at the time to do or the time to do it. But if you recall, we did a very bad idea. We had a swingers golf club bar that had a good idea but was not run or operated correctly, and it didn't work out in the end. We had a salon with scantily clad women, and that didn't do particularly well. It was caught exposed. So some of those things didn't do so well. We did have a Hawaiian sushi bar restaurant, which was excellent, but unfortunately it did not survive long term. Again, I think it was a little ahead of its time. Today, I think sushi and Hawaiian food would do much better downtown than 2011. But part of that was the Plaza wasn't what the Plaza is now. I wish we could do the that take two on that restaurant concept. And then in terms of what we didn't do, I mean, one that really sticks out was where the wedding chapel is. We had plans to turn that into a speakeasy. And there's a secret outdoor patio that no one knows about behind the wedding chapel. And that would have been a really cool speakeasy. But we just ran out of time and money to do that the way we wanted to do it. And in hindsight, again, I think we would have been a little ahead of the curve doing that. East Fremont wasn't quite what it is now, or wasn't what it is at all now. I think we would have been a little too early on that. But those were good examples. And then the beer garden did not work out the way we intended to either. So look, not everything you do works every time. And those were projects that we definitely would like to have had the opportunity to take two on.
Let's talk about some of the other hardships that the Plaza has been through. For example, the floods. Can you talk about those at all, or what it was like to bounce back from that?
We had two very unusual situations that occurred at the Plaza in the last 5 years that some people will know about, some won't. A lot of our regulars obviously do. But in April of 2016, we were remodeling the pool deck, and the pool was a huge project for us. We have arguably the nicest pool in downtown right now, and
the best place to watch fireworks from. That's where I know.
That's for sure. It's a beautiful pool, and it was a big project. When we were doing the remodel, we had to completely redo the whole deck. And during the construction process, there was a record rainfall in April of 2016. I don't remember the exact measurement, but it was the heaviest rainfall. There was golf ball hail coming down. It was completely crazy. I remember coming out of my house and seeing the water up to like knee high in the streets. Cars were getting stuck in it. I mean, it was crazy. And I got a call that there was water coming into the casino. So obviously I went down there, and there was literally water coming into the casino. I mean, I think there's videos online of it and pictures of it. And it was pretty scary. That was in April, I think it was April 10, 2016. And we, some people thought we had to shut down the property because there was potential for other issues. The only good thing about it was that the way the plaza is built, it's got two towers, the north and the south tower, and then you got the building in between, which is the casino, the convention, and the pool deck. The rain really came through the middle. So the rooms were fine. People were fine in the rooms, but the casino was very damaged. We had sections turned off. We had machines that were ruined. We had to put visqueen up. And you were there, Gary, for that. I know that. And I tell you, our team, I don't know that many other places would have been able to continue to operate and figure it out. And our team pulled through and showed a great togetherness to continue to operate and rebuild from that. So that was the first one. And then the other one was in February of 2018. On Super Bowl Sunday, we had a drunk guy go up to his 19th floor on the North Tower, and the joke was that he was a Patriots fan because the Eagles had just beaten the Patriots, right, Gary?
Yeah, that was it.
And he turned on the fire hose, which is a high water pressure outlet, and he went into his bedroom and went to bed. Well, I'm downstairs, and I get a call that there's water coming through the offices. So I said, wow, there must be a burst leak, a burst pipe or something. And they're like, Jonathan, there's a lot of water coming down, like not just a burst pipe. So I was like, okay. I go down to the North Tower, and there's water coming out the elevators. This guy had flooded the 19th floor, and the water, now that we had surveillance found where the leak was coming from, fortunately, because somebody thought it was like an overflowed bathroom or shower.
Yeah.
Well, it was the fire hose, and this thing flooded the entire North Tower from the 19th floor down to the 15th floor. The water seeped through, but then the water ran into the elevator shafts, or the elevators went out of service, of course. And people like Gary and myself, well, Gary, you left because you were drunk celebrating the Eagles win. But myself and about half of the management team that was still there were literally stuck with a full hotel, 500 rooms on that tower.
Is this like a Titanic kind of? Is this like a Titanic kind of thing where all the water's rushing into the room? Like, is that kind of a visual? Like, it was just overflowing, and then like the water was rising.
It was that, Russ, exactly that. And there was people stuck on those floors that couldn't get down. Calling, obviously, the fire department came to help get people down, and we had 500 guests, 500 rooms, which is more like 1,000 guests, trying to get up to their rooms to get their belongings. They couldn't. Of course, in these crisis moments, people start to think about misinformation, and our team had to manage through that. And for the next 3 days, we were still relocating people, getting people up there, and it was very, very scary. And the way our team worked together, managed that, and all of us put in double, triple shifts to work through that process was something I'll never forget. And it gives me great confidence that these difficult times, we have the right people to manage through it and come back stronger than ever. And if you look at what ended up happening, we ended up with a great situation with brand new rooms in the North Tower as a result of it. So there was definitely a happy ending.
How do you just fall asleep with the hose on? Like, that's what I want. Like, how do you train for that? What kind of Iron Man situation? He turned the hose on and like just kind of carried it in and just let it
go. No. He was drunk. Firstly, Russ. He couldn't find his room. He turned the hose, which wasn't connected to anything. These are hoses these are outlets that are up there for the fire department to connect their hoses to.
Oh.
So it was in the wall. He broke the glass, pulled it out, turned it. This one actually didn't have to break glass. It was a cabinet that he opened and turned on the outlet, and it took us 9 minutes to find out where it was coming from. And in that 9 minutes, I don't remember the exact quantity, but who knows how much water was injected into our building. Wow. It was crazy.
And one of the problems is everybody was in the Super Bowl party at the time, so it's not like there was a bunch of people in the tower and in the rooms that was able to to notice it as quickly as it would have. I mean, everybody's watching the big game at that time.
No, the game was about an hour over. The game had ended about an hour ago, but everyone was still downstairs hanging out or in the party hanging out. They weren't up in their rooms yet, but it was difficult. It was difficult. We had a lot of upset people, a lot of scared people, and it took us a long time to get everyone under control, get the messaging out to everyone. We didn't know how long were these elevators going to be out of service for, and people had their belongings up on the 21st floor that had to get up there. So, we had to figure that out, and some of us got really good at running stairs. Not myself, of course, but I had to walk. But it was difficult.
So what else can you possibly think about preparing for? No one would have ever thought floods would have happened. No one would have ever thought a pandemic would shut down the whole business. What else can you possibly even think of preparing for?
Well, I don't want to jinx it, Lisa. I don't want to prepare for anything else. Okay, we
no more than we have to.
We have built the Plaza to last. We feel like we've built it the right way. Many people said knock down the Plaza 10 years ago and rebuild it. We didn't do that. We came at it from a different perspective of let's improve it, continue to improve it, and every single day make it a little bit better. And unfortunately, whether it's the floods or a pandemic, they are facts of life that you just have to deal with. And it's about having the right people to build and to do it the right way. And I have great confidence that Las Vegas will be back. I think it will take longer. I think the pandemic is going to be tougher than either of the floods, unfortunately. But it isn't just us; it's everybody. And we're gonna make sure we survive and come back better than ever.
Absolutely. Gary or Russ, do you have any other questions about?
Yeah, what are you guys doing in your spare time? I mean, Gary, I see you at the hotel, but Russ and Lisa, what are you guys doing?
Still working on podcasts, still doing things with websites. That's my passion. That's what I love to do. And
supposed to say you're enjoying your family, man.
I am. I have pictures of my kids behind me, as you guys can see. Like I'm spending a lot of time with my kids, and I worked from home for a while like this, so I've been able to help out where we can and do the things that we've done. And I've spent time with kids and worked on passion projects.
Lisa?
I am working on plans to reopen the Plaza, and then also reading books, watching TV.
Watching Tiger King?
Watching Tiger King.
Oh, love Tiger King.
Home workouts, Zooming with friends. I've seen more friends in the past few weeks than I have.
My wife has a friend that used to work with Carol Baskin, and she showed us pictures, and we talked to her for a little bit, and she spent a lot of time over there.
Well, I think the message is we want to get everybody back to Vegas safely and when the time's right, and the Plaza will be ready to be there for your outlet when you're ready to have fun, and hopefully we can do it in a safe and comfortable way. Still give people a good Vegas experience.
We've received your questions and comments on social media, and we'll be responding to them in next week's episode. And if you have more questions, email us at podcast@plazahotelcasino.com or tweet Jonathan at Jonathan Jossel. You can also tweet the podcast's own Twitter account at @otcoms_podcast. That's OTCOMS_podcast. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook at otcoms.podcast. We'd love to hear from you about how you are coping and your plans to visit the Plaza and Las Vegas again once we're open. In the meantime, we'll be back from our homes next week, but someday soon, we'll all be back on the corner of Main Street.